Oh, right. Picture this for a second. When you watch football, you're watching absolute freaks of nature doing stuff that looks impossible, right? These guys are sprinting like racehorses, hitting passes with the accuracy of snipers, recovering from brutal tackles, like nothing even happened. And fans go nuts because it feels like magic. But here's the crazy truth: it's not just talent, it's not just genetics. There's a whole invisible world behind those 90 minutes that nobody ever talks about. An army of scientists, trainers, and performance experts who are literally sculpting these players into the machines you see on TV. And the wild part is they don't get credit, they don't get chance. But without them, football wouldn't look anything like it does today. And that's what I want to get into, because once you understand what's happening behind the curtain, man, you'll never look at the game the same way again. So buckle up. This one's going to blow your mind. Here's the thing: a lot of people don't even think about when they watch football on TV or they're in the stadium screaming their lungs out for their favorite club. Like, you're looking at these dudes sprinting, tackling, bending physics with their free kicks, and you think it's just raw talent, right? But behind that talent is this whole invisible army of people whose names you'll never hear, and they're basically turning these guys into high performance machines. And I don't mean in some sci-fi way, I mean real science, man, like the kind of stuff where you'd be blown away if you saw how much work goes into it. These scientists are tracking every step a player takes in training, every microsecond of acceleration, every tiny shift in body posture when they're running. Like, they've got sensors on them, GPS, heart rate monitors, and all this data is pouring in like it's NASA running a space mission, and they're analyzing it in real time, making adjustments that nobody in the crowd will ever notice. But those adjustments are why that winger can go full speed in the 85th minute instead of collapsing with cramps. It's why a striker who used to pull hamstrings every season suddenly stays healthy for 3 straight years, because somebody behind the curtain figured out exactly how much stress his muscles could take before breaking down, and they designed training that pushed him right to the edge without crossing it. And you got to understand, this isn't glamorous stuff. These scientists aren't getting endorsement deals from Nike. They're not on magazine covers. They're in the background with laptops, charts, crazy looking machines, sleep trackers, even saliva tests to check hormone levels. All this weird little stuff that sounds obsessed, but it's the reason the game looks the way it does today. Football is faster, it's harder, it's more intense than it's ever been. And that's not just because athletes got naturally better, it's because this science has elevated the entire sport. It's like Formula One, but with human bodies instead of cars, constant fine tuning, constant upgrades. And if you pulled these guys out of the system tomorrow, you'd see the difference immediately: more injuries, slower games, shorter career, less insane moments that make your jaw drop. So when you're watching your favorite player pull off some wild move in the last minutes of a game, you gotta realize, yeah, he's a freak of nature, but he's also the end product of this hidden machine of people working behind the scenes. Without them, football doesn't look anything like the version we're addicted to right now. Dude, the crazy part about modern football that nobody really talks about is how much of it is literally just data, like mountains and mountains of numbers being crunched every single day. And it sounds boring when you say it like that, but it's wild when you realize how deep it goes, because these guys are basically turning football into this living science experiment where every sprint, every pass, every collision is being measured, tracked, and broken down into patterns. And it's not just some coach with a clipboard anymore. It's entire teams of sports scientists looking at GPS trackers strapped to players' backs, checking how many high-intensity runs they did in training, how much distance they covered, how fast they decelerate, and then they're layering that on top of heart rate variability, oxygen levels, sleep cycles, and even what these dudes ate the night before. So imagine being a player and knowing that someone can literally tell you, hey man, you pushed a little too hard yesterday. If you go full tilt today, your risk of injury spikes by 20%. And then boom, they change your workload. Maybe you rest, maybe you do recovery drills instead. And that's not guesswork. That's science dictating how to squeeze every ounce of performance without breaking the machine. When you think about it, it's nuts how accurate it's gotten, because teams now know when a player is about to burn out before the player even feels it. Like, they can see the decline in metrics that predicts fatigue 2 days away. And the flip side of that is optimism. Like, they can design training sessions that mimic exactly what you'll face in a match. So if you're a winger, they'll replicate those repeated 30-yard sprints with sharp turns and recovery periods, and then they'll track how your body adapts, adjusting nutrition, hydration, even sleep schedules down to the hour to maximize output. And it's not just physical, they're doing cognitive reaction tests too, because in football, decisions happen in milliseconds, so they want your brain firing at the same level as your body. And the more you dig into it, the crazier it gets, because the fans just see 90 minutes of chaos and skill, but what's actually happening is the result of hundreds of thousands of data points telling coaches exactly who to play, when to sub them, and even how long they should stay on the pitch. And that's why the game looks so intense now, because you've got scientists literally engineering performance like it's a video game character build, except it's real flesh and blood humans being fine-tuned to the absolute limit. Man, one of the craziest parts of modern football that people don't even realize is how much effort goes into just keeping these guys on the pitch. Like, it's not even about making them stronger or faster at this point. It's about keeping their bodies from falling apart under the insane demands of the sport. Because think about it. These dudes are running 10, 11, sometimes 12 kilometers a game at full intensity, cutting, twisting, smashing into each other. And if you rewind 20 or 30-year players were dropping like flies with injuries that ended careers way earlier. But now you've got guys in their late 30s still competing at the absolute top level. And it's not because they suddenly found the fountain of youth. It's because there's this invisible squad of sports scientists working behind the scenes, constantly monitoring their biomechanics, their muscle loads, their recovery cycles, even their gait when they walk. Like, if a player has a tiny imbalance in his step, these scientists will spot it before it turns into a torn ligament, and they'll correct it with specialized training, stretching, or even micro adjustments in footwear. And then you factor in all the recovery science stuff like cryotherapy chambers, red light therapy, hyperbaric oxygen tanks, custom nutrition that's literally designed to reduce inflammation at the cellular level. And it sounds like sci-fi, but it's real, man. They're hacking the body to make sure a hamstring strain doesn't become a 6-month nightmare. And the crazy part is the players don't always even know how close they are to breaking, because the data is telling these scientists things the player can't feel yet, like their muscle fibers are fatigued or their tendons are stressed. So the staff steps in and says, no, you're resting today. And that one day might save them from an ACL tear. And that's the kind of stuff nobody cheers for in the stadium, but it's absolutely vital, because without it, you don't get careers like Cristiano Ronaldo still sprinting at an age where most athletes are retired, or Zlatan coming back from injuries that would have ended other players for good. It's the science of longevity keeping them alive in the game, and the difference it makes is enormous, because if you imagine football without these methods, you'd have your stars shining bright for maybe 3 or 4 years before burning out, but now we get to see them dominate for a decade or more, and it's all because of this invisible safety net of injury prevention that most fans never even think about, but it's literally reshaping what an athlete's prime years look like. You know what blows my mind about modern football, man? It's not just the physical. It's the way they figured out that the brain and the body are basically one system. Like, if your head isn't dialed in, your body won't perform the way it should, and vice versa. And these sports scientists are treating players almost like astronauts, monitoring not only how fast they run or how much they lift, but how sharp their decision-making is under pressure. And that's wild when you think about it, because football is one of the most cognitively demanding sports out there. You've got a guy sprinting full, someone else closing him down, the ball bouncing unpredictably, and he's got maybe a fraction of a second to make the call, pass, shoot, dribble, or fake. And if his brain is even slightly foggy from fatigue, poor sleep, or stress, that decision comes a millisecond too late and the whole play falls apart. So now you've got these scientists digging into neurotraining, using VR goggles to replicate in-game scenarios, testing reaction times with lights and sound trigger, even looking at brainwave patterns to see when a player is most alert during the day. And then they design training and even match prep around that. Like, some guys perform better at night, some need meditation or breathing drills to stay calm under pressure. And it's crazy because it's not just about stress management. It's literally rewiring their nervous system to handle chaos better. And on top of that, you've got the nutritional and hormonal side feeding into it. Like, if your gut health is off or your cortisol levels are spiking from stress, it shows up in your mental clarity on the pitch. So they're optimizing that too with tailored diets, supplements, and recovery protocols. And it creates this loop where the body fuels the mind and the mind drives the brain. And the players who buy into it end up looking superhuman, because they're not just physically fit, they're mentally bulletproof. Like, they see the game a second ahead of everyone else, staying calm while 80,000 people are screaming around them. And that's not just talent, that's trained, that's engineered. And it's the reason why the top athletes can make split-second choices that change everything, because their system is optimized from the inside out. So when fans are watching a player thread a pass that looks impossible or keep composure during the last kick of a penalty shootout, they don't realize they're watching years of
of science-backed mind-body optimization in action, this invisible tuning that turns a regular athlete into a decision-making machine that can handle stress, pressure, and fatigue at levels most humans couldn't even comprehend. The wildest thing about football that nobody really talks about is this massive credit gap. Everybody in the world knows the names of the stars. They chant them in the stadium. They wear their jerseys. They debate them endlessly on TV shows and podcasts. But the people who are actually making those stars possible are basically ghosts. They don't exist in the public eye. And I'm talking about the sports scientists, the performance guys, the data analysts, the nutritionists, the people who are literally engineering the modern game. And the thing is, fans don't care about who designed the training protocol that kept their striker from tearing a hamstring in the Champions League semifinal. They just care that he scored the winning goal. And the players, as much as they'll thank the staff they know they're the ones getting the multi-million-dollar contracts, the sponsorships, the glory. And meanwhile, you've got some PhDs sitting in a windowless room crunching numbers that make that success possible, and nobody ever hears his name. And that's kind of insane when you think about it, because if you pulled these people out of the sport tomorrow, the quality of football would nosedive, careers would get shorter, injuries would skyrocket, and the whole spectacle wouldn't look nearly as polished or superhuman as it does now. But the reality of the credit system in sports is so skewed toward the visible performer that the invisible architects just fade into the background like it's almost a thankless job. These scientists are on the road constantly, long hours, crazy pressure, and if they do their job perfectly, nobody notices because nothing goes wrong. But if they screw up once, if a player breaks down or underperforms, they're the first ones to get blamed inside the club. And that dynamic is brutal, man, because the entire industry runs on their work, but the spotlight never hits.
And it makes you wonder how many innovations in the sport happened because some nameless scientist was obsessing over recovery data at 3 a.m. and nobody will ever know because it all gets wrapped into the mythology of the star athlete. And sure, that's part of the entertainment business. Fans want heroes, not lab coats, but if you're being real about it, the heroes on the pitch are standing on the shoulders of people who'll never get a chant, never get a highlight reel, never get immortalized in a documentary. And that's the credit gap in football. It's massive. But it's also the reality of how this whole machine works. So look, man, when you really break it all down, football as we know it today, the crazy speed, the insane fitness, the long careers, those mind-blowing last-minute plays, it doesn't just come from the guys we see out there on the pitch. It comes from this whole hidden army of sports scientists who are literally reshaping the game from the shadows. And the thing is, most people will never clap for them, never know their names, but without them, the magic doesn't happen. And that's kind of the point of this whole thing. To realize that greatness isn't just what you see, it's all the stuff you don't see. The hours of data, the injury prevention, the recovery hacks, the mental training, all of it feeding into what looks effortless on match day. And if you take one thing away from it's that the unsung heroes are just as important as the superstars, because the superstars wouldn't exist in the way we know them without that foundation. So yeah, respect to the players, but double respect to the scientists in the trenches making sure the show goes on, because they're changing the sport in ways we'll only fully understand years from now. And with that, I just want to say thank you for hanging out. Thank you for listening. Good luck chasing your own version of high performance, whatever that looks like in your life. And I appreciate you guys. Seriously, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you on the next